Hello everyone, Nubkeks here and welcome to my tier list for the Kel'thuzad patch in Heroes of the Storm, again particularly for Hero League where you gotta draft and all that sort of good stuff. The normal website I use to make my tier list is currently under maintenance. They're upgrading that so I can't use it, so I've gone back to like the old Photoshop method, so if things are looking a little bit funky, don't get too upset about it. I'm also going to be breaking things down by role, so let me know what you think of that structure, and don't get upset if your favorite hero is ranked low on the list. I mean, lots of heroes are. That's the way it works. It's their relative strengths. I know people in the comments get very upset when their favorite hero isn't ranked where they'd want it to be, so I apologize in advance. But big question, meta. Where's it at? What's like the defining thing about the meta in the moment? One very simple answer, Garrosh. Frickin' Garrosh, frickin' hell scream. So here's game design gone wrong, okay? Let's think about it. Garrosh, really good pick potential. What he does, he grabs someone, very little counterplay they can do, pulls him in with his Q, throws him back with his E. That person's massively out of position. For a whole lot of heroes in the game, that's just an instant kill. You're just dead. And picks getting kills like that are a really big deal of this game. But obviously when you've got a hero that is just focused on that, that's the thing they do, is knock people out of position and they get killed with little counterplay. Really dangerous, really dangerous to buff that hero. Blizzard went and buffed Garrosh, I think way too much, and he's just insanely strong. I think he's the strongest hero in the game right now. So yeah, that really defines the tier list here. As you will see, a lot of the heroes that are doing well at the moment are they're doing well against Garrosh, and that's always worth considering when you're going into the game. I would just ban him. I just ban him. If you're banning, just ban Garrosh or pick him. Just you don't want to fight against Garrosh, it's too much of a pain. Alright, well, let's dive into it. This is the list for Warriors, and this is how I think Warriors are looking in the game at the moment. So, in Tier S, Garrosh standing, I would say, head and tusks of Manaroth above everyone else. I think Garrosh is, like I said, the best hero in the game right now overall. I think Sonya and Dehaka are also really good. Two very strong solo lane heroes. Dehaka obviously brings a global. And particularly in the late game, neither hero cares too much about being flipped into the backline. Sonya obviously takes a bit longer to come online with being able to survive being flipped in, whereas Dehaka is very good at it from like level 10. He's like, yeah, you flip me in, Garrosh, yeah, whatever, great, fantastic, more AoE for me, I'll soak up loads of damage with adaptation, that's fine. But yeah, I think both heroes are really good, and again, specifically, they're really good at solo laning. In terms of Tier 1 then, we've got a whole bunch of kind of, I'd say like the most impactful main tanks. Bear in mind, some of them have, like, I'd say Arthas and Diablo, even Zarya, can have somewhat risky matchups into Garrosh, so watch out for that. I've put Tyrael up here in Tier 1 this time because Tyrael is a really good answer to Garrosh. He's super mobile, he can jump in with Sanctification, he can be a really good way to deal with that. And I think that Tyrael is probably pretty underrated at the moment, but if you are struggling against Garrosh, he'd be a great hero for you to pick up and learn. In Tier 2 then we have the average heroes, and I'd say no real massive surprises here, to be honest. It's all fairly straightforward. I think ETC, notably, is doing better in the current meta, because I mean, if you flip ETC into your team, he power slides through your team to safety and kind of stuns you all for good measure on your way out, or maybe even drops a mosh pit in the middle. It can be pretty bad, so I'd say ETC specifically is doing pretty good against Garrosh. Varian obviously is pretty decent against that too, because he can survive for a really long time. But apart from that, these are just, you know, your standard warriors. There's nothing too special going on here. They're all good, but, you know, they're not amazing, they're not terrible, they're just good. Then in Tier 3 of the heroes I think are weaker. So I've got Muradin at the top. You know, Muradin also, I'd say Muradin's pretty undertuned overall. However, he does work well against Garrosh, so that's kind of going for him. I've put Leoric here, so this is a big one, the Leoric rework. Where is it? So I've put him in Tier 3 at the moment. I think it's I'm relatively underwhelmed by Leoric right now. The thing you have to understand, right, is that yes, they made the hero a lot more fun. Like there's a lot more interesting, I would say, gameplay going on with the hero. However, in terms of Hero League, Leoric pre-rework was really good, okay? Leoric was really good pre-rework. He did one thing extremely well. He was just like, I'm super good at solo laning. I'm super good at just soaking waves. You can't deal with it. Like, I'm just going to be soaking waves, pushing in, out-dueling, out-trading heroes. And there's really nothing you can do about it because of how I work. I've got so much self-healing, and my trait, even if you kill me, I'm just going to come back. He did that so well. He's not as good at that anymore. There's more counterplay because he's more based around his basic attacks. Also, the nerf to Entomb definitely hurts in Hero League, because that was the other aspect to him. It's like, Leoric's like, yeah, I'm going to do really good solo laning, maybe even double soaking lanes. Then I'll pop down and tomb someone, we'll get a kill. And that's kind of what I do, right? they nerfed Entomb, so that's not as good anymore. He's more focused around his basic attacks and stuff like that. I mean, if you miss a single spectral hand, like grabby hand, like you're going to really do poorly in the team fight. So yeah, at the moment, I'm a bit concerned about Leoric. Now, he may move up the list. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if he does move up the list as we adjust to the new way that Leoric has to be played. But that is my big concern right now. Leoric, he was so good before in his particular niche, which was really valuable, and they made him worse at that particular niche. And I feel like overall I'm a bit underwhelmed, but we'll see moving forwards. But for now, yeah. All right, next up we have the supports, and things are fairly standard, fairly typical with the supports. There's no massive surprises here. Again, as always, you know, this patch, I feel it's worth noting, okay, how do heroes do with, you know, with Garrosh? So obviously we've got like Lily and Brightwing rated very low. I don't think either is particularly great right now, and they obviously both are terrible against Garrosh. It's like flipped in. Brightwing's just like, oh shit, can't do anything. You know, you get the gist. Rehgar and Uther, the two best supports. Pretty much no question in my mind overall. I rate Rehgar slightly higher than Uther overall, because Uther has been nerfed consistently, but they're both very strong, and they would strike me as the two best supports in the game. In tier 1, we've got Tassadar and Oriel. So I think they're both very good. Oriel's not as dependent on a hyper carry anymore, but she still obviously flourishes in that situation. Tassadar is just really good at enhancing, you know, Vala and Tracer, who I think we'll see when we get to it, are two of the best range damage dealers in the game. In particular, he's good with those ones. So I think Tassadar is really, really nice as the secondary support. Tyranda's also pretty good. So Tyrande, you run her as a damage, right? Basically in the spot of an assassin. She's like flavor of the month at the moment. People love her. I think she's good. I think she's strong. I don't think she's like insanely strong. I don't think she's particularly better than, let's say, you know, a Tracer or a Vala. I'm not like falling over to grab a Tyrande. But I think she's good. So there's no harm with picking Tyrande, but even though she's a support hero, you do not pick her as a support hero, you pick her as an assassin. Then in tier 2, we got the average ones. So Malf is pretty decent, you know, Karazim's pretty decent, his mobility definitely helps in the Garrosh meta. I think Lucio's actually coming back in as a decent hero. Worth noting, Malf is not good at, he's, you know, slow healing over time, he's not good at saving people that are caught out of position. He doesn't have cleanse anymore, so bear that in mind. Got Stukov, who's, you know, fun, but not amazing after his nerfs. Lieutenant Morales rework. She pretty much does all the same stuff, but she's got all the exact same weaknesses. So certainly in higher levels of play, she's still very difficult to pick up because she gets countered in what she does so easily. And then in lower levels of play, like I said, they nerfed that niche, which is just I slap my healing beam on and don't really think about it and I just run around, do loads of single target healing. I think they've made her a much more interesting hero. It'll take a little bit of time to adjust. But yeah, she's still got the same... She's probably a bit better at higher levels of play, but still has the same glaring weaknesses. And then she's not as strong at that kind of mindless niche that she did in lower levels. So yeah, Lieutenant Morales also, in terms of power, a bit meh, I think, in the current patch. Then Brightwing and Lily, like I said, definitely the two weakest supports by a little bit. I mean, Brightwing still brings global, which is cool. Lily still has a blinding role, but melee assassins aren't the best at the moment in terms of like physical attacking ones, basic attacking ones, so she falls off a bit there. But yeah, that's what the sports look like. In terms of melee assassins then, so Malthael definitely the best overall, no question about that really. I still rate Zeratul very highly, but Zeratul is a very high skill hero. So I'd say in most leagues, he's not going to be a major issue. You could potentially even move Zeratul down the list quite a bit. It really depends, but I do think in the hands of a very skilled player, Zeratul is still a force to be reckoned with. Zeratul still combos insanely well with Jaina and Diablo, so I think that there is a really good play to be made there with Zeratul. In tier 1, we've got Rag, we've got Varian, and we've got Kerrigan. So just overall good heroes. I think this is Colossus Smash Varian, I think one of the most underrated heroes in the game, and I think he works really nicely at the moment in this patch too. I think Colossus Smash Varian is one of those underrated heroes that you could make some nice plays with. He's good against, you know, Garrosh flips him in, and he's like, yeah, well, I got like 6 seconds almost of shielding, and, you know, I got mobility to get out again. It's not a massive deal. Garrosh flips someone into your team, Varian's like, all right, great, Colossus smash that person, they're dead for sure. So I think there's a lot to be said for Varian in this patch. In the average heroes, we've got Illidan, Samuro, Alarak, and the Butcher. So some pretty big changes here. Okay, so the Butcher got nerfed quite a lot over the last month. A lot of changes went to the Butcher, which moved him, in my opinion, from being like the most OP hero in the game to being, you know, fairly average one. I'd say he's even fairly average to weak at the moment. Certainly has a horrible time against Garrosh. It's like, yep, you got killed. There go your stacks. The reason that the nerfs, even though they might have seemed small, are such a huge deal for the Butcher is that he is fundamentally a snowballing hero. And once you nerf him, right, it has a snowballing effect then, right? Because it's harder to snowball. Like when he's OP, he's really OP because he snowballs so quickly. He finishes his stacks and then boom, it's like go, go, go. I'm ready to be super strong. Once you nerf him, it's harder to finish his stacks. It's harder to reach that OP status. Then it becomes, you know, easier to lose your stacks. So yeah, the nerfs to him definitely snowball pretty quickly. So I rate him as just tier 2 right now. Alarak also, you know, difficult to play with, I'd say, relatively little reward at the moment. And yeah, that's kind of tier 2. Tier 3, I think these are heroes that are definitely the weakest. So we got Valeera, and then we've got Thrall. So Thrall, again, much like Malthael, I would say unquestionably the best melee assassin. Thrall's unquestionably the weakest and the worst. He's got pretty terrible matchups into basically all of the popular tanks right now. So yeah, he's just not great, unfortunately. Sorry, Thrall. Over in ranged assassins, this one is always one of the most controversial. People get really mad over these ones sometimes. But as you can see, I don't have anyone rated as OP. There's no like standout ranged assassin for me right now. In tier 1, these are the ones that I would be mostly focusing on, really. We've got Vala, is just really good, solid overall, just great damage, great wave clear, great at pretty much everything. She's super mobile too. We've got Jaina. So Jaina got a rework. And Jaina's always been strong in Hero League. She brings nice tools for Hero League. And she's still strong now. The patch only made her better. So yeah, I think she's still strong. She's not OP, but she's a really good, solid option that does a lot of things really well. Tracer's actually up here as well. And Tracer's in a really nice spot at the moment, I think. She's also very good against Garrosh again. She's like... Ranged assassins and supports are one of the ones that are most typically going to be really upset by Garrosh, right? Whereas Tracer doesn't care. She's like, yeah, you flip me in, great. I'm just going to keep dashing around. Not a problem. I can just dash around you. It's no big deal. You probably won't even hit me with the flips in the first place. So I think Tracer's actually in a great spot at the moment. Greymane, he's still there. And Greymane's still just really solid, really versatile and flexible. Falstad, of course, brings global pressure, which is really invaluable. And then we've got Kel'Thuz, who I would rate at the bottom of tier 1, but he's still pretty good. He brings a stun on a ranged assassin, which is really useful. He's got great wave clear, great AoE. So I think Kel'Thuz he's in a decent spot. Tier 2 then we got the average ones. So anything big here? I mean, okay, so we got a few big things here, I would say, actually. So Nova, number 1. I think Nova is actually really good. And she's one of the heroes that people love to hate for whatever reason. They think that Nova sucks. So Nova's actually quite good. Especially with a little bit of practice, Snipe Master, she's got a very surprising amount of burst damage. A very surprising amount of burst damage, right? Which makes her super valuable. I think she's just continuously underrated in Hero League in particular. She's obviously not going to see any, if none, if any play, right? In pro play. But in Hero League, she's really, really good. She's really good because she's got that surprise kill factor. And especially like if people are focusing on Garrosh, and there's that much distraction in terms of, oh god, I need to dodge this stuff or die. That also suits Nova really well because that makes her life easier because they're not focusing on her as much. Other ones we got here. So Kel'Thuzad, okay, that's another big one. I think Kel'Thuzad he's probably pretty good overall. I think he's got a nice kit, but much like every new hero that's released to the game, there's a learning curve, right, to every hero. And Kel'Thuzad's a pretty difficult hero to play in that sense because you want to be comboing his abilities together correctly. So I would not be worried about Kel'Thuzad at all at the moment, but he is definitely a hero to keep an eye on as the weeks go by, like between this tier list and the next one. He's one to watch out for. Definitely one to watch out for. I could see Kel'Thuzad being quite strong. We'll see how it pans out once people actually learn the hero. And then Blizzard will probably make a couple of balance tweaks. So we'll see where he is then. So definitely stay tuned to see where Kel'Thuzad is in the next tier list. For the moment, at least at the start of the patch, there's definitely no fears really of Kel'Thuzad. You just kind of, he's there, whatever, it's fine. In tier 3 then, we've got a few fairly big placements here as well, I would say. So I've got CRO Me down here. The CRO Me rework, I've got a lot of reservations about it, having played it more now. So number one is obviously a lot of power. The fundamental change is that she's got a lot of her power now is baked into a stacking quest on her Q. Why is this a big deal? Why have I moved CRO Me down so low? Well, the big deal is that a lot of CRO Me's strength came from the early game, right? And the mid game. And that's what's been nerfed. By making her damage a quest, that has nerfed her early game and mid game damage. It's made her, she's stronger in the late game, and that's lovely. But really her big strengths were in the early and mid game before. You know, you get your heroic before other people, and then it's like, bam, you go in, you get a kill. Well, that has been nerfed. Bronze Talons, which was a huge part of that as well, has also been nerfed, right? Indirectly. So Bronze Talons is whenever you use her Q, her Sandblast, it empowers your next basic attack. Well, you can't do that as much and as aggressively anymore. You can't do that because you want to be hitting your Qs. You want to be hitting the Sandblast to stack your quest. Because otherwise, your quest is delayed and then your mid-game, late-game becomes much weaker, right? Because you need to finish that quest. You need to get consecutive hits. So that nerfs her Bronze Talons as well. And all that stuff adds together to definitely make her weaker. Like, you know, you hit level 8, you're going in for that temporal loop combo, well, your Q just doesn't hit as hard anymore because you need to stack it with the quests. So that is, for me, a big concern with CRO Me. Also, I think, I expect that they'll make her quest easier to finish, I really do, because it's a bit mad at the moment. But yeah, it's like they could have something like, you know, it stacks up faster and faster. Like even when you miss, it's like, okay, the first 10 get you 1 point, the second 10 get you 2 points each, and then whatever, the next 10 get you 3 points. I don't know, like some sort of stacking thing. I don't know what they would do with it. But she has that talent at level 11 now, here and there, isn't it? That's what it's called, where you can swap with your Sandblast. It's like you probably won't see that talent even do anything in the game because it takes so long to finish the quest. And that was something I noticed on PTR. Even in the game on PTR, and you can see that game on the channel, where it's absolutely kicking ass as CRO Me, like just dominating, like a really good CRO Me game, hitting loads of stuff. It took ages to finish her quest. So I think that's a big concern with her, and I think there definitely needs to be some tweaks, some tuning to the hero. I think it's fine. Like I said, this is like the opposite of the Garrosh problem, where CRO Me is a hero who could potentially be totally cancerous and like just blows you up and kills you, massive kill pressure, no counterplay. Which is something I think they wanted to address with this, make her more sustained and less about like, hey, you don't have to cleanse on a temporal loop and just blow someone up, ha ha ha. That's what they wanted to change. And they went wrong with that with Garrosh. I think they've played it cautiously with CRO Me, and I'd expect to see some small balance tweaks. And I hope they're small balance tweaks to keep tweaking her up until she's kind of reached that right balance point. The final one here that I want to point out is Genji. Oh man, Genji, Li Ming syndrome, okay? So people who've been playing the game for like a year or two, I don't remember when Li Ming came out, whenever she came out, but since when Li Ming came out, they'll be fully aware of this, or they ought to be, right? What is Li Ming syndrome? Li Ming, when she came out, was OP as anything. She was crazy OP. And she was for quite a while. And then Blizzard steadily and consistently nerfed her over the course of a few months. She went from being OP to being strong to being, then, as you see now, I would consider, you know, relatively weak, actually, compared to some of the other options. But it took quite a while for just the overall, the game's view of things, the consensus, to start to appreciate just how much she'd been nerfed. And for a long time, even though she was really weak and had like a really low win rate, people would still first pick and first ban Li Ming all the time and consider her to be OP. Just kind of like PTSD from when she was OP. Or just the fact that when she kills you and gets resets, like when things work really well for Li Ming, they're very flashy. Like when she starts wrecking face, it's very obvious because she's getting all these resets, and that kind of enhances the perception that she's really OP. Okay, we see the exact same thing here with Genji. Genji came out, I'd say again, like for the first week, he was kind of very difficult hero, so we didn't really see it. But then after like the second, third week, Genji, it became very clear that Genji was very OP. And he really defined the patch and the meta for quite a while, especially at high levels of play. Genji has been repeatedly nerfed, and we have now reached the stage where Genji, at basically all levels of play, is something like a 45% win rate. It's absolutely terrible, all right? It's absolutely terrible win rate. Yet he is still like first picked and banned all the time. People still perceive him as this incredibly powerful hero, which is totally incorrect. Again, it's like PTSD. It's also that they perceive him as like a sort of a hero with little counterplay. Whatever it is, but he's really not that good, okay? It's like you might really notice when Genji does well, but he does well very infrequently compared to other heroes. He's very inconsistent. He's just not that good anymore. And one of the big problems is that he is massively overvalued as a pick. Massively overvalued as a pick, consistently still in ranked, picked all the time when he's really not that good, okay? He's really not that good. He can be. I'd say in pro play, Genji's still insanely strong. Yeah, in pro play, but you're not playing pro play, you're playing Hero League, and he's not very good in Hero League at all, so you should really stop playing Genji. And finally, we come to the specialist. I would say right now, specialists are in a great spot. Okay, specialists, this meta actually suits specialists really well. What do specialists do? Well, they've got just really good like pushing pressure and map pressure. That's what they excel at. And that works really well in the Garrosh meta. You know, okay, so the enemy team's they've got this pick comp, like they're, okay, we'll pick you off and kill you. Well, one way you can play around that really naturally and intuitively is to just have a team that's like, well, all right, you're looking for picks. Well, we're just gonna have you totally under pressure, constantly moving around the map, trying to deal with the wave clear and the pushing pressure we're putting out. So in tier S, we've got Nazeebo, who's just super strong, you know, late game scaling hero. He just does lots and lots of damage, which is fantastic. We've got Zagara, who's also actually a really good solo laner. And she's got massive pushing pressure. She brings massive map pressure. And Zagara's just, I think, in a really strong spot at the moment, actually, with that. We got the Lost Vikings. They're really good on Garden of Terror, like tier S, like, you know, first pick, first ban them maybe even on Garden of Terror. They're really strong there. Other maps, not so much, but that's one to just be aware of in general. Going into tier 1, we got Probius, Sylvanas, and Zul. Pretty interchangeable here. I just think all these heroes are in a nice spot at the moment. They bring just lots of wave clear, lots of pushing pressure. One thing to note, Zul is obviously nerfed quite a bit. So Zul is not like the dominant force he was before. I think the last tier list, he was my #1 pick of the hero. He got nerfed quite quickly after that. So he's not like the #1 most OP hero in the game anymore, but he's still a good, strong pick. Tier 2, again, I think all these heroes are pretty decent. I think Medivh obviously does well in this patch because of how he does against, you know, Garrosh in particular, but he's a very difficult hero. And certainly in lower leagues, he's still, I would say, quite underwhelming, but definitely moving into higher leagues of play, Medivh is actually quite nice in this particular patch. I don't think any other surprises there. They're fairly sort of standard, just average heroes. Again, Murky is another hero who's like pretty decent in this patch. He also matches up nicely into Garrosh and just the constant map pressure and whatever. It's pretty good. Then in tier 3, we've got Abathur and Gazlowe. I think Gazlowe is really bad. And Abathur's decent, but he's just not the best at the moment. His weak early game is definitely a big, kind of a crippling factor. But he could be okay, maybe. He's a hero that does really bad in lower levels of play, does much better in high levels of play, but is somewhat, you know, all of these heroes, by the way, are map dependent for specialists. They all have their maps that they're good on and bad on, and you want to play around that as well. So there you go, guys. That is the tier list for this patch. That's what I think is strong. That's what I think is weak. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Give it a thumbs up if you like the video too. You can subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys all very, very soon. I've got lots of live streams on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays you can check out. And then videos. I've been sick this week, so there's not been much videos, but I'm better today, thankfully. So there should be more videos out really soon. So yeah, lots of videos to look forward to coming up, and I hope to see you then. So yeah, thanks for watching, and bye-bye.